Hi there and welcome to this Tidy Pro Masterclass. This is a short masterclass designed for those of you who have never used Ableton before, the total novice. This class is ideal to get you up and running and also ideal for those who are thinking about doing our longer 12-week production course. So before you even open Ableton, there's a few things that I would do first. Number one, I would set up a space on your computer or external hard drive where you're going to keep all the sounds, your sample library. This is the material that you will use to make a track and should always be kept in the same place, as Ableton will be able to recognize its file path. You can see here on my screen, I've set up a little folder which is called Songs and Samples. This is where I keep my sound library. So let's get Ableton open. We're using Ableton 11 for this course. So when you first load Ableton, this is what you'll be presented with. Ableton has two screens. This is called the session screen. This screen is ideal for getting ideas together and also working if you are in a live environment. You can stack MIDI parts and sounds to try them together to see if things work. We have a second screen which can be accessed by either hitting your tab button or this button here. This is our arrangement screen. This is the main screen we will be using to produce and write and arrange our music on, especially in the 12-week production course. So let's get a few things set up. Let's start by going to our preferences. We go to Live, Preferences, and we go to Audio. The first thing we want to do is assign where our audio is coming out and in from. If you're using an audio interface, this is where you would select that audio interface. You can see here, I've selected my Universal Thunderbolt interface as my input and my output. Yours may be called something different. This will now allow us to hear the sounds coming out of Ableton and also to record sounds into Ableton. Let's go down the folders here. We have Look and Feel. This is where we can dictate how the program looks to us, where it's zoom, how big the display is, even change the color. The default is the mid-light. I actually prefer working in the mid-dark. I think it looks a lot more solid and it's my preferred workflow, but it's up to you. The next preference we're going to need for today is the Record and Warp Launch preference. In here, you have the choice of changing the mode that your warp function works on. At the moment, it defaults to beats, but we want to change that to Complex Pro. This mode is the highest quality mode and it's also the most versatile. We can get into the others in the more advanced course. So now that's set up, let's have a little look at our screen, what's in front of us. As you can see here, the top left, this is the selection where we select the tempo of the track, the BPM, beats per minute. At the moment it's set to 124, but if we were doing some hard house stuff, for example, we might have that up at 140, 145. We can change it simply by scrolling up and down with the mouse or by typing in a number. Next we have here, this is our metronome. This plays a click to help us keep in time. And there are several other functions at the top here, for instance, a play button, a stop button, record button, and some other tools which we'll get into looking at later. But for the purpose of this masterclass, we just want to get you set up and get some sounds running and things happening. Now, you remember earlier I told you to set up a folder that will be your sound library, where you're going to store all your sounds that you're going to be using. Maybe you buy a commercial sample pack, you got your kick drums, your snares, your loops, all that kind of stuff. That's where you're going to keep them. We hit this arrow here. This is where we're going to be able to access them from. If we come down to here, you can see I've already added some folders into my song, but we can add our sound library by hitting add folder, selecting our sound library and choose. I won't choose it because I've chosen it already. So there's our sound library, and in here now you can access all the sounds that come with Ableton. Now what's great about this is when you do access them via this method, when you audition sounds, for instance, here's some top loops from my sample pack. They will automatically play in time with your sequence. So when you are testing things out, all you have to do is flick through your loops, for example, they'll play in time with your sequence. And then when you find one you like, you can pick it up and drag and drop it into your sequence. So that's the easy way of getting your sounds into Ableton. There are other methods as well, which we can look at later, but for the purpose of this masterclass, we just want to get you up and running. Let's take a look over to the right here. These are where our tracks are located. We have, at the moment, 2 MIDI tracks set up and a couple of audio tracks set up. A MIDI track is the track that we use to play our software synths or perhaps an external MIDI instrument. When we select a MIDI track, it will allow us to load up an instrument, whether it be a synthesizer or a drum machine or a sampler, onto this track. It will allow us to play notes in either using a MIDI keyboard, or we can create a MIDI part and draw notes in via that method, which we will do later in this course. The other tracks we've got set up are audio tracks here. Kind of does what it says on the box. These tracks allow you to import pieces of audio, which you can drop them and have them playing back. We'll be able to manipulate them from here. We'll be able to use them in a song and in an arrangement. Pretty simple so far, right? If you want to add a new MIDI track or a new audio track, that's pretty simple too. You just hover over the track, you right click and you insert whatever type of track you want. So if we wanted a new MIDI track, we'd insert MIDI track, and there you go, we have a third MIDI track. If we wanted a new audio track, we'd insert audio track, etc. There are some other options you can see in that menu, but again, for the process today, we don't need those. Let's get rid of the ones we're not using for the moment. So we've got our audio track, we've set our BPM. Now, how do we get some sounds running? We've looked at how you can drag and drop a bit of audio, but let's get rid of that for the minute. Let's go to our MIDI track. Let's just say, for instance, we want to start programming our kick drum. So we need to create a thing called a MIDI region. This is a region that allows us to insert the notes into it that will be played back by our chosen instrument. So a quick way to do that is either to double click and Ableton will automatically create you a MIDI region. We've selected one, it's 1 beat long at the minute. This is actually ideal for when we want to program a kick drum. So there we go, we've got our MIDI region, but we've got no sounds to put in it. So let's just close that down for a second and think about what sounds we want to get. Well, let's start with the kick drum. Ableton comes with a great onboard sampler and Simpler, which is a simple version of the sampler. Let's concentrate on using those for the minute to get a kick drum up and running. Let's load up our Simpler. So simply make sure the track is highlighted and double click. There you go. You can see it's loaded up the Simpler automatically for us on the track that was highlighted. So we want to get a sound into this. At the moment, there are no sounds loaded into this. So we're going to go to our sound library. I'm going to go to my sample pack. I can select sounds. There we go. Drum hits, for example. In drum hits, I can select kick drums and I can flick through and I can audition these kick drums. Absolutely no problem. So how do I get it into the Simpler? It's very easy. We're going to pick it up and we're going to drag and we're going to drop it there. Bosh, it's in the Simpler. It's also spanned automatically across your keyboard. You can hear me playing my MIDI keyboard there, and it automatically puts the original key of whatever sound or instrument that you're loading in on C3. Okay, So let's start. How do we actually get that playing and programming in? Well, let's double click on our part and you can see it opens up the window at the bottom here. And you can see C3 is the note that our original kick is on. I'm just hitting the keyboard there. So there are a few ways to get the notes in. We could play and record if you wanted to play the note in, or we could simply draw the note in. So how do we draw the note in? Well, we have a thing called a pencil tool. You can either select it here or you can hit B as a quick key. So if I go down to our selected key again, C3 here, there we go. There's our kick drum. I'll hit B again, get rid of it. I'll extend it to the length of the beat. There we go. Let's just make this all a little bit bigger up here so we can see what's going on. There we go. In fact, if I want to copy this over now and have that repeating, a simple thing would be to do is to reduce the size of the region. And if I hold Command and D, I can duplicate that note across. We usually work in 8-bar sections. So why don't I just duplicate it across for the 8 bars? There we go. Let's play that back. Pretty simple, right? Now, if we wanted to, we could join this part together. We can select it. We can right click and we can hit consolidate. You can also consolidate it by hitting Command and J. There we go. We have our part. Let's extend our loop by moving these locators around our kick drum part. Here we go. We can turn off our metronome now. So how simple was that? We're already up and running with a kick drum playing. Of course, this same method will work for every instrument that we want to add into this. I can go on to the next MIDI track. Again, I can load up a simpler. I can select, for instance, if we were going to do a hi-hat. Let's get ourselves an open hi-hat. Let's just try drop that onto that. Let's load up our simpler rather. There we go, loaded up another simpler. Go back to our sound library, pick up the hi-hat, drop it into there. Brilliant. So there we have our hi-hat now loaded in. So we could double click, extend this part up. There we go. Remembering C3. Oops, let me go onto the correct track, sorry. Let's move down to highlight this track, and to be able to work on this track, we'll turn on the record function here to the right. Select our C3 and we'll hit B. And there we go. Let me just move that onto the correct key. I'm just using the up arrow on the keyboard to do this. Oh, I have that in the wrong position. Let's move it to the correct position. Okay, now you can see the part that's gone in on this occasion is a little bit too short. So how do we extend this part? And how do we edit the MIDI, which is what this is called, within this page? So to extend the part is very simple. I simply grab the end of it and extend it. Now, there's a thing called velocity. That is how hard the sound is playing, how hard your key has been hit on your keyboard. Essentially, it's a bit like a posh word for volume. So if you hit your keyboard very softly, you get a quieter sound. If you hit your keyboard very loudly, you get a louder sound. We want to make sure all our parts for these particular drum sounds are playing on the same velocity. How do we edit that? Well, it's very simple. Down on the bottom here, we click there and we have our velocity. We'll just lift that up to the highest it goes. There we go. Excellent. Now, if we've played this in live, our timing might not be the best. we might be playing slightly out of time. So let's just move that slightly out of time to demonstrate this. So there's a function within this page called quantizing. That means it will automatically put your sound in time for you. To access this, there are two different ways. We can just hit Control and quantize. And you can see there it's moved the note. Or you can hit Command and U. That's the quick key for it. So that's now put our sound into time. Right, we want to duplicate this. Let's close this down. Let's highlight the part again. Hit Command and D. And there you have it. Let's go to the beginning of us. Very simple. And we would go through this and we would keep repeating to bring up our sounds. I will add a bass, add a clap. So let's just imagine we've added some of those things and we want to bring in some of our loops that we were talking about. I'm going to close these. I'm going to locate some loops in my sample pack. There we go. Loops. Let's have a look. Drum loops. Full drum loops. Let's have a little look there. They're full. Awesome. Top loops. Let's find a top loop. This is a loop that doesn't contain a kick drum. We've already got a kick drum playing, so we'll find a top one. As I said before, they're very easy to audition now. We've set up our sound library folders in this format. They will all play back in time. Let's go with that one. All I have to do is pick it up and drag it across. I can either hit Command and duplicate, or I could hold Alt and pick it up and copy it that way. So excellent. We've got a drum groove going in a matter of seconds. It's one of the brilliant things about Ableton. It's very quick to get ideas together. Okay, as you noticed then, when that drum loop was playing back, it was playing back a little bit loud. How are we going to adjust the volume for that? Let's take a look. Over to the right here, you have some different parameters you can change. And right here is the volume control for that particular channel. There we go. Simple. I just need to bring the volume up or down with whatever suits. Brilliant. So what other functions do you need to know for Ableton to get you started getting sound out of? Let's take a look at using one of the internal synthesizers, how you load those up and get those playing. So, do you remember how we created another MIDI track? I'm going to highlight, I'm going to hit Control. I'm going to say Insert MIDI track, and there we go. We've inserted a brand new MIDI track to be able to play a new instrument on. So where are our instruments kept? Right here, under the heading, funny enough, Instruments. So let's have a look. Ableton comes with some good internal synths that come with it. But if you have got any third-party stuff within that you've loaded up, you know, synths like Silent or Avenger or whatever you use, they're stored under this section here called plugins. Whether you're using audio units for a Mac or VST for a PC. So let's load up one of these. Let's find ourselves a good bass sound. Let's just go with the internal synths for the moment. I'm going to go to Instruments. I can select one of these. For instance, Analog. Let's see what's in there. Synth lead, bass. Let's look at a bass. I can audition the sounds. Again, although it's a synth, I can still audition the sound before loading. Let's go with that one. Pick it up. Double click. Rather. There we go. I need to change to this little red button here. Now we're working on this track. I need to put the record enable on this track. You can hear me hitting the MIDI keyboard there. So, very simple to load a synth in. Now, if we wanted to play that in, we could either use a MIDI keyboard if you've got one, and we could hit the record button. There we go. Go into the part. Select all the notes. If I hit Command and All on a Mac, may be different for a PC. And then I'm going to quantize. I'm going to put all that bad playing in time. This will allow us to edit. You may notice now, we've played this in live, that some of our notes are all different lengths. So how are we going to get these all the same length together? Well, let's highlight them all. I'm going to hold my Shift key and I'm going to use my left and right arrows to make them as small as possible. That's taken them all to the same size. I can then use my right arrow to extend them to the length I want. We can see here all our velocities are a little bit all over the place. Again, we can select them all and bosh, pull right up to the same level. So now we've got a very neat part. Let's close this down. Let's check what we've got. Little mistake there at the beginning, but let's just find a bit that's good and we'll be able to duplicate that. There we go. So from bar 5 was good. Let me shut this so you can see a little bit easier on the screen. Let's reduce this. There we go. We've got those bars that are good. I can hold Alt and bring this back to here and bring that back to there and copy that to there. So in a matter of minutes, we can reduce the volume, bring the volume down here. Now there are thousands of different techniques that we can use for programming and playing and stuff. We are going to get into that a lot more on the creative side in our main production course. This course and this masterclass is simply to be able to get you up and running and have some sound and have some ability to put some parts in without having to worry about that when you get onto the main course. So we've got that sorted. What other functions are we going to need? Let's, for example, pop a clap in. We can either get a clap loop, perhaps, or we can use a program to clap. Let's just go for a clap loop for speed. There we go. I'm going to go back to my sound library. I'm going to search some good claps. I know there's some good claps in here. There we go. Clap loops. There we go. Let's go with that one. I'm going to drop that in, and Ableton is automatically putting it in time using this walk function. We're going to take a look at that walk function in a minute, but first of all, I'm going to show you how to add some reverb to a sound. So there's our clap. I'm going to hold Alt and copy that over. Too loud, simply bring the volume down here. Now, if I wanted to, I could also bring the volume of the parts down, the actual piece of audio rather than the track. Let's just imagine, for argument's sake, these were two different sounds, and this one was louder than this one. We could come down to the section here, and rather than change the volume of our track, we could edit the volume of the audio. Can you see that going up and down there? There we go. That's if your audio, say you had, for example, your audio was very quiet. That's how we manipulate that there. But we're going to be doing it on our track for now. We'll come to these functions later, mostly in our main production course. So there we go. We have our clap in. We've got a groove programmed in not very long at all. So let's just say we wanted to add some reverb to that clap. Now there's a couple of different ways of doing this. We can either set up a thing called a return, which is the traditional way of sending reverb to something. And in fact, when you load up Ableton, you can see down here that it automatically loads up a reverb and a delay on a return for you. So if I hit my tab button, or this little button to the top right over here, it takes us back to our mixer window page. And you can see these are all the tracks that we've been working on. And here are our returns. On these returns, if I click on it, you can see a reverb has been loaded up. This is called return A. And from our mixer channels, we can send a signal to either one of these returns. So we've got two returns set up. I am going to send our clap to return A. And you can hear there, it's sending it to the reverb. If I was to send it to B, you can hear it sending it to the delay that's set up. So pretty simple. If you did want to add more returns, it's a simple task. We go down to the bottom of the page here. We right click. We insert return, a bit like how we inserted one of the audio or MIDI tracks from earlier. There we go. If I go back to the other page, you can see another return has been set up. There's nothing loaded up on this return. So if we wanted to load something up on this return, a different kind of reverb, for example, we'd go to the left over here. We'd go to our audio effects. Let me take out the word there, audio effects. And you can see here, we've got a whole list of things to choose from. Different reverbs, choruses, phasers, all some really cool built-in effects. We can also load in some third-party ones by going to our plugin section, but we'll just stick to the factory ones for now. So let's go to reverb. Let's load up a big, long reverb into there. All I have to do, double click, and there we have it. Return B has appeared over here. If I take those off and add return B, we can see another one's been set up. So that's a simple way of setting up your reverbs. So now, in not very long at all, we've managed to work out how to put some MIDI parts in, how to bring some audio in, how to record an internal software instrument and how to access those, and how to put reverb on a sound. And it's already sounding pretty good. So let's take a quick look at the warp function. This is the function on Ableton that helps keep pieces of audio in time. And to be honest, 99% of the time, when you load in a piece of audio into Ableton, it will automatically sort this function out for you. But sometimes you may be using a piece of audio that comes from vinyl or a different source where the timing isn't quite as good. Maybe it's a sample from a live band. So sometimes you'll have to manipulate this manually. This is how you do that. Select the piece of audio. This loop I've purposely put out of time, by the way, but we'll show you how to get it back in time. Select the piece of audio and let's have a listen. You can hear that's going out of time. Well, you see this little yellow marker that's in? That's where the beat starts here. That's in line with that. If I pick that up and move that, I can move that piece of audio back in time. Now, by double clicking above any of these points, I can add one of these markers in, which will allow me to move it into time or even change the groove if I really wanted to. You know, I could muck around with that for hours. You know, start moving that around if I wanted to. That's how you warp stuff in at time. Really handy for getting vocal samples and manipulating those too. So there you have it. we've got the very basics of setting up your Ableton, being able to load in your sound library, being able to load a kick into the simpler or the sampler. Both methods work the same way. To be able to load up a software instrument, how to program that in, to be able to warp your audio, be able to change the volume of your audio and get a basic groove going. So these are the very, very basics. But if you can practice doing these so they become almost like what I call muscle memory, they become second nature to you. When we go on to do the more advanced course, it's going to be a lot easier for you.